Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Warren Canonigo, and you're watching my life icons. I'm so thrilled today because my guest is really one of a kind. I can consider him a medical world royalty, and you will know the reasons why later in the course of our interview. Ladies and gentlemen, one of Department of Health's medical officers, Mr. Dr. Van Philip Baton. Hi, Van.
Hi Warren, Sir Warren.
How
Good
are you
after.
today? You're inside your car.
Good day. Yeah, I'm inside my car currently in a hospital here in Mandaue City. Accompanying one of my parents for a checkup.
So I really hope and will pray that they will recover soon. Your mother, no, your father.
My father, my dad.
Your mother. So let's pray for his fast recovery. What was your initial reaction when you, after more than a decade, you received a chat from me, invite me to my vlog? What was running through your mind at that day?
Actually surprised, no. Yeah, surprised lang why, and then but if other reason, yeah, it was surprising in a good way, lang.
When you received the chat from me, did you recognize right away that this is a Warren from University of Bohol?
Yeah.
Right away.
I know. Yeah, I still know.
To my subscribers and viewers, the reason why we know each other is because I was once a part of the faculty of the College of Liberal Arts at the University of Bohol. And Van, during that time when I was an instructor, he was a nursing student, of course, part of the College of Nursing department. And he was not really a low-profile student, considering the fact that Van was the president of the senior class
Yeah, seniors class. Yeah.
of that school year, and he was also the governor, one of the governors of the College of Nursing History. Van, my first question is, what were the perks and the challenges of a nursing student who's busy with duty and with lots of things to study, plus responsibilities as a governor, as a president of the batch?
Perks, ilado ka. Then challenge, ilado ka. So meaning, kadang you get to cut lines, no? But then again, since ilado po ka, dili ka people will have an opinion of you. So mo pa na siya imong challenges, and then also time wise, no? You really have to prioritize which ones you have to attend, no? So something has to give. So basically, when I was in fourth year, it wasn't as hectic as second year or third year in nursing school. So medyo dito na haya-hay gamay. So there really wasn't a free time that for the fourth year. No? Naghan ng compliance, mga certificate, mga papers for graduation and for board exams. But happy ko kay with the College of Nursing, the officers back then who were part of the government of the College of Nursing were quite responsible. So I wasn't really having a hard time to micromanage anything.
Exactly. And of course, you have proven your worth. You really did your best and everything really paid off because you graduated and you passed the board exams for nursing. So you're a registered nurse. And then
Yes, I am a
after
registered
that,
nurse.
what's the next chapter? You told me earlier you didn't proceed right away to medical school. So what happened in between?
Yeah, we were the unfortunate batch of 2006, so got the board exams
The leakage thing.
question. Yeah, the leakage thing. So that really, so it postponed my plans to go abroad. My initial plan, of course, like all nursing students and parents of nursing students, were to go abroad, no, and work there. But when the nursing leakage thing happened, so really had to cancel all those plans and then think about going back to taking the board exams, no, to remove all doubts that you cheated. So that was a year off, and then after that, around 2007, 2008, 2007, I applied for a staff nurse in Cebu, Cebu Doctors University, and one also in Bohol, Ramiro Community Hospital. Unfortunately, both of them, ano, I was already accepted in Ramiro when Cebu doctors called me that they accepted my application. So unfortunately, I had to um, choose Bohol na because I was already in Bohol. And then I gave that more or less a year before I transferred here in Cebu. The plan was to review here in Cebu para sa CG or NCLEX pod, CGFNS and NCLEX, and all the other exams required for abroad, no, as a nurse. But I also applied for a call center job while doing review. Sumunod na call center ko. Unfortunately, just after 2 months, when I went home to attend a friend's um,
When
burial,
I'm very
Eileen Patero. So I also figured in a car accident because of the stress, no, from work. I call center, while I sleep. No?
correct.
So I again had to resign because I had to be confined for a longer period, and I had a very large suture from here to here. No? So that's why I had to take time off from work. Fortunately, after that, nag-opening ang San Jose Recoletos here in Cebu.
Mhm.
So I applied as a clinical instructor, and fortunately, again, I was accepted. So for 2 years, I was teaching RLE, that's related learning experience, more of a clinical stuff for nurses. I accompanied my students to psychiatric ward exposures, also their duty in, I think it was in Oslo. Yeah, in Oslo District Hospital. I also accompanied them there. Before that was 2 years, and then I took the NMAT on my last year in University of San Jose Recoletos. Then that's it.
Mhm.
Continue na for med school.
If I got you correct, if you are a registered nurse and you apply for a clinical instructor position in a school, you don't have to take education units. There's no need.
Yeah, that back. I don't know if that the requirement changed now, but back then, yeah, you just had to have experience, either a related experience sa imong gi-applyan. So if I had already a experience sa ward sa hospital, so that's why I was assigned in RLE. But if I didn't have the required experience, maybe I would have been a lecturer rather than an RLE instructor.
When you were still a clinical instructor, Van, for 2 years, right? For 2 years,
Yeah, 2 years.
say that somehow you have followed or you have been influenced by the teaching style or instructional style of your clinical instructors, or you can
Yes.
have your own, or what's the dynamic?
Yeah, definitely. I was influenced. There were a lot of teachers in Bohol that were really influential in me in my teaching style. No? But then again, di mo mapugan nga, your true teaching style would also come out or shine through. No? So it was a mixture of both. But fortunately also, I was teaching, di ba nga nakalayo ang gap when I was teaching and with my students. So it really wasn't a culture shock or a adjustment period between us. So there really wasn't any difficulty either following the teaching method of my influential teachers in Bohol, and also my own teaching skills based on the experience that I had as a student.
And when did the drive or the determination to pursue attending medical school? What started it? Or
Yeah, actually, before I became a nurse, the plan in high school was to take up pre-law courses, and I was taking up philosophy in one of the universities in Bohol for 2 years before I was asked to transfer to nursing. So really the law thing backtracked, and then when I was already a nurse, parang it's just a natural path, no, for nurses or in allied medical nurses, allied medical courses to follow through on medicine, no? So I'd also doing during the exposure to the wards in the hospitals here in Cebu. I don't know if it's the uniform, but I was always mistaken for as a doctor. So maybe that was it. Na, the feeling of being called a doc or a doctor in the hospital. So Yeah, and also um I was planning to go law school gihapon no, after nursing, but my elder brother, a CPA, was already taking up law, so I don't want to have a duplicate or another sibling nga parehang course. So that's why I pursued med school.
Speaking of transition, Van, from being a nurse to being a doctor, as far as you know, is it possible for a nursing graduate who did not or who will not take the board exam to pursue medical school, medicine? Is it possible?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the only requirement now compared to before, I don't know what year it was gonna change ang policy, but you just have to have a baccalaureate degree, any 4-year course, and you pass the NMAT, and then you pass the interview, then you can get into any medical school of your
And
choice.
so you have chosen a medical school. Why West
Visayas State University.
Medical School? Why?
Yeah, actually, supposedly I was to choose a medical school here in Cebu. Pero nahitabo back then muraog dagko ang tuition, no? The tuition here, but that time around 2010 was around 60 to 70. That was in med school. Average of nakamahal siguro is 100,000 per sem. So it really was quite expensive. But a friend of mine mentioned West Visayas State University. It's actually it's actually the only medical school back then. Karon na may usa siguro. I think there's already one university public medical school in Region 8. Wala pa ta diri sa Cebu, Region 7. But in Region 6, they had the West Visayas State University. Another also was, it was also my opportunity to travel outside of Region 7. So that's also was a good thing that I chose Region 6. Actually, the first time I went to Region 6 was also my first day in Region 6. So prior to that, I didn't have any exposure. I didn't stay. Actually, the first time I went to Region 6 in Iloilo. Also, West Visayas, as I did my research, I found out that it was also a sister school of Veles. They had the same teaching method called PBL, problem-based learning. So our instructors were taught by instructors also in Veles Medical School, Veles College. Yeah, so CIM, Cebu Institute of Medicine. So that's why it really was a choice, but also an opportunity for me to learn other cultures and see other places.
I am really happy to hear, Van, that you finished your degree in a chartered institution, a state university, because you're like a government scholar. The reason why it was affordable, relatively affordable, because the rest of it are taken care of by the government, through the people.
Correct.
Like a government scholar. And then, so how many years did it take you to finish? 5, right? 5 years?
4 years medical school. Then after you graduate, you have to have a postgraduate internship. That's 1 year. So you can take the board exam if you didn't do your PGI or postgrad internship as mentioned. So 1 year siya. So graduated 2014, then we took the boards 2015.
2015.
Yeah, I did my postgrad internship in Bohol.
So you needed to spend a year for the review and the exam, 1 more year. So
yeah, 1 more year. So basically 5 years. Correct.
In that 1 year of preparation, you just had to just study and review. You don't have any sideline job. You don't have any gigs or stints or whatever, something like that.
That's for the entire for the entire year after you graduate, you will be assigned to a hospital. You'll be doing the job of a doctor, but under the supervision of a licensed physician. Okay, and licensed naman me. So basically, you just get mark OGT ba?
Okay.
And then we did the review the last 3 months prior to the September board exams in 2015.
And it was a take one.
Yeah, it was a take.
My goodness, you're a force of nature.
Actually, our batch for that time, we were 100%. All of our batchmates. We just had one failure. It wasn't our batchmate. So, 100% ang among batch when we took the board exams in 2015.
And then after passing van, so what's the next step? So you had to apply for a position as a doctor or as a
Yeah, so after graduation, that's 2015 September. Usually mag-abli magud ang mga hospitals. The opening up for residencies open around November, October, November. So you have time to think of what you want to specialize. Normally specialty ang doctor. So if you graduate and then you pass the boards, so you're a general practitioner without any training, formal training particular. So you actually can be a doctor still, but limited ang imuhang ma-handle yung mga cases. So, di kayo comfortable. It wouldn't be as thorough as one who has specialized. Muna, specialized ka in either of the specializations. It's either internal medicine, pediatrics, general surgery, and then pathology. Basically, those are the general specialties. No? It's either surgery, OB, pedia, IM, kind of four. So while contemplating kung sa akong i-take, I had moonlighting jobs. No? Moonlighting is when doctors like me who passed the board exams or did not have any formal training, or even if you had training, you go on duty in any hospital for 24 hours or more. So di ka, you're just muna kag kanang kuan, freelance doctor. So you go on duty sa hospitals for 24 hours or more, and then you get paid after your shift. No? So I was doing that for, I think, 3 months at a time. I was only doing that for 1 month because before nag-moonlight ko, I actually had a more or less 2 to 3 weeks training for obstetric and gynecology in Galyares. Close to a month, I was rotating as a applying resident for OB-GYN. No? However, tungod kay pa-end ang year, madelay among sweldo. So I was thinking of not pursuing it and maybe take on the residency opening by the next year na para diretso ang sweldo. But come January, nag-opening ang Department of Health for a part-time position. No? So it was an opportunity for me to travel. Okay, actually, that was one of the major choices, major selling point for that particular position for a doctor. You get to travel a lot. And then the pay was quite good for a first-timer. So that's why instead of pursuing residency, nag-quans ako na Department of Health ko for that particular time, January 2016.
And what was the position offered to you by DOH, the partner?
Universal Healthcare Implementer. It was a part-time job, Regud. It really wasn't a regular job. A 10-year plantilla position. Pag I was in the Department of Health January, around May, there was an opening for Medical Officer 3. I really didn't want to apply because I was planning to really take on a residency program. No? Either I was planning to pursue obstetrics and gynecology or pursue psychiatric medicine, no? which is in Soto here in Cebu, or in Region 6 or in Manila. So I was thinking of that. So planning na ko, di ko ma-apply regular position. But there was already a taker for the position in May, but when it came to July, wala mo tunga ang nakadawat sa position. So that's why the office was telling me to apply for the position and might as well try it while I'm not really wholehearted pa sa akong decision to take up residency. So moto, nag-apply ko sa Medical Officer 3 and the rest is history.
I want to go back, Van, to the moonlighting activity of doctors. What do you think is a standout advantage and one standout disadvantage of doctors moonlighting? Based from what you know.
One of the major mga makarugog me when I talk to my sister-in-law is also a doctor man, pediatrician, and ang sister-in-law is also a doctor and internal medicine graduate of the residency training. So when we talk, the advantage of being of no training at all is you confident ka because you're using the training that you had when you were still in medical school. So confident ka mo suturing or you stitch up wounds, confident ka to assess pediatric patients, confident ka to assess adult patients, confident ka to assess pregnant women because of the trainings you had in medical school. But once you one would enter specialization, you're more focused. Like if you're internal medicine, you're more focused on adults. If you're in pediatrics, you're more focused on children. If you're in surgery, you're more focused on non-pregnant patients. If you are on OB, you're more focused on female-related conditions, including surgical procedures. So medyo na limited ang imong view ba? So when they moonlight, it's more focused on that particular specialization. So malimited ang ilang confidence level. However, for moonlighters po, if you did not have any formal training, it's more of the confidence level side. Your management will be based on your experience rather than on the training. So you always have to learn day by day as compared to those who had training. They already had this set of skills when they were undergoing the residency program. No, so I think those were major factors, both good and bad, for both moonlighting without training and those moonlighting with already a training program behind them.
Thank you, Van, for educating us about that. Now, speaking of job description and set of skills and knowledge, what do you think is the difference between a doctor who is a resident in a hospital and you, a medical officer in a government agency? What's the
Yeah. Actually, yeah. There really is a big difference between me, a doctor in the office, and a doctor in the field. No? Primarily, we in the Department of Health, we're more focused on populations. No, we're not focused on individual patients. That's why actually our field is more on public health and policy making and technical assistance. No, as compared to doctors in the field, they're more seeing patients individually. We are seeing population. That's why importante sa amo sa Department of Health that we get data, no, trends, data reports. We're more on that data analysis, no, and driving policy driven by data we get from the field. So that's why in COVID-19, if you notice, grabe kayo ang focus on numbers. But we in the Department of Health, it's more than the numbers. You have other context behind that. So I think those are the difference. Doctors on the field see patients, so they know the impact of policies, while we in the Department of Health, or doctors, particularly in the Department of Health, who are dealing with policy, we get to make decisions based on the overall picture rather than individual stories. No? So I think those are the major differences. And then primarily, I don't see patients. On occasion, I get to treat my co-employees, no? Friends. No? They might ask consult from me. But I really am not doing that. Also, since we're more on policy, it's more of paperwork as compared to doctors. Good nga, they see patients, they manage patients, and then they also do a few paperworks. But for us, it's really more of paperworks. And I think common to both doctors in the government and doctors on the field is we both get to travel a lot. So we get to travel a lot.
for seminars and
Seminars, exposures,
speaking
a lot of things. Usually it's more of exposures. No? You get to experience other people, other methods of doing things, especially for us in the government. Kay limited example, if I just limit myself in Region 7, there might be instances or there might be solutions done by other regions that already solve problems here in Region 7. And same thing, if there are other regions also can learn from me when I visit them based on the things we experience here in Cebu. No? For example lang, no, for my case in Region 7, for one of the program I handled for HIV, we are the only region in the entire country with a significant population who is injecting, of people who inject drugs. So we are the only region. NCR currently does not have any data on that. So if ever there are any interventions or there are any strategies related to preventing HIV for people who inject drugs, it will be done here in Region 7. But data and experiences from Region 7 might be used by the national central office of the Department of Health to formulate data for the entire country, no, to guide interventions for people who inject drugs to prevent them from getting HIV. So that's why I get to travel. And then if there are countries outside of the Philippines or either in ASEAN or nearby countries, no, I also get to travel to experience there, to share information with them and get information from them. So that's the purpose of travels. For doctors also in the doctors in the field, they also get to travel for that same purpose. No? So we get to attend conventions, and conventions is not just to travel. No? Conventions are also a venue for doctors to learn new skills, new methodologies. No, that might help the patient. No, it can end up decreasing the admission of patients. It might cut the cost of patients through medications, through procedures, or by decreasing the length of stay in the hospitals. No? So really, travel for us doctors is both work and play. Primarily work yun siya. No? It's really stressful when you travel.
You know what, Van, your competence, your achievements are truly inspiring, and I can say that you have represented yourself well, the agency, and the country in general. In fact, I've seen your pictures on Facebook, and there were some pictures which showed you guesting in a regional talk show. Then you had a lot of speaking engagements. You're a sought after, really in demand like a resource speaker. What do you think is like the biggest speaking engagement you have done?
Biggest in
Or maybe
terms of
most special,
crowd.
maybe most memorable to you, or maybe closest to your heart?
Okay. One siguro challenging. The most
Ah,
challenging speaking engagement I ever had, no, until now, pinaka-challenging siya lang ko, is when I was tasked to talk to a bunch of elementary school students less than grade 6 below, no, grade 6 and lower sa grade level. I was tasked to talk to them about HIV and STIs. So that really was something malisod siya explain without causing a scandal to the adults in the room. So that was my most memorable. But it was also a very good learning experience for me. Sometimes you really have to tailor fit your talks to the people that will be listening. Both those who are actively listening and those who might be just observing the entire event. No, so that was my most challenging. For my most memorable was my travel to India in 2017. No?
wow.
It was memorable because I was tasked to represent the country and to talk about the experience of Cebu, PWID, and it was also my first time to do that. So it was really challenging. Supposedly, I was to be accompanied by another staff from central office who was more focused on the policy. But at the last minute, wala makalusot iyang visa, so that's why I had to attend it on. I think I was the head of delegation for 3 people in India. So that was really memorable for me, and I traveled to India on winter time. So first time po to na ako nakasway og very cold weather, nga dili aircon, no? So India. So that's what it. Another memorable experience for me was travel to Australia when I had to talk about HIV, MSM, looking at the experience of the state of Victoria, and particularly we visited Melbourne.
I'm sure this pandemic, this COVID-19 pandemic, would really be infamous. I'm sure. I'm sure if it will
Yes.
be gone someday, hopefully, it will really be infamous. How did it change? Our final topic is, how did it change your life as a doctor, as a government employee?
Change. It changed my life a lot, no. So number one, the travel ceased, no. So first time na ko nga to finish the month without any travel. Before COVID-19, every month I had to have a travel either within the region or to Manila or to other places in the country. Every month, yun na before. So you only get to see me in the office for the first week and the last week of the month. But with COVID, nawala na tanan. Next is it changed also the way you handle things. Before Manggod, like before COVID-19, people were quite complacent with the Department of Health being on the sideline. But with COVID-19, medyo na-highlight ko nila the need to support Department of Health, for people to be aware of data, value of data, for people to be aware of the need for cooperation, following protocols from the relevant government agencies. So that was also something wala yun na experience before. Usually the Department of Health gives a memorandum, issuances, but people just take that for granted. But now people are always waiting for the Department of Health's memorandum for orders, no? So that really was life-changing for me. And primarily for me, kaya ako mag-handle ko sa emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases, which is where COVID-19 is, no? So that's why, as you mentioned, I always talk to people because of that. My program is primarily designed for policy for COVID-19. So that also was something that I learned in just a few months with the COVID-19. Also, one thing, the reliance on public transportation. No? So with COVID-19, I learned to bike. No? I biked to and from work every day since March up to August, no? Until I decided to buy a car because it's too dangerous already to bike on the streets. So that was also something, no? Biking to work, pang una ka pang Amerika raman, no? But with COVID-19, walay jeeps, walay taxis. Rather than walking to work, I had to bike, no? And mind you, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic here in Cebu, I report to work at 8, then I usually go home at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. biking back to my home, to my condominium. So really, that's how COVID changed my job. It made the Department of Health really front and center with the response. It's both a blessing and a curse. Blessing because now people know the value of public health. It's also a curse because all the decisions of the Department of Health now are scrutinized by everyone. No? So everyone has an opinion, whether to isolate, whether to test. So doctors, non-doctors, feeling doctors, quack doctors, all have an opinion on how to manage COVID-19. So yeah, challenging, especially with social media. You really have to control yourself when to answer queries on your timeline, when to ignore, who to unfriend, who to block. So that also was really challenging for me. Especially I know the behind the scenes of decisions being released and people having opinions when they are released. So really have to control also social media activities with COVID-19. Yeah. So that's how it changed my job.
Thank you very much, Van, for the enlightenment. This interview is really amazing, especially for those viewers who are interested to take your path, to follow your footsteps.
Yeah, it's the role of being a doctor in the Department of Health really is the road less traveled for doctors. So usually doctors go to residency. That's the only path you have. But there is this certain path that also doctors need to engage, especially with public health, because you cannot have individual health, people becoming healthy when policies aren't aligned towards a particular goal. So I think we need more doctors to engage public health, because when policies do not provide an environment for healthy living, you will always get to see people checking into your clinics, going into hospitals, and that's not a good way to keep your population healthy. So it's the load less travel, but this is a road that one must really take because it really has a big impact in terms of population health, national resiliency, the term of resiliency towards not just man-made, but also not just natural disasters, but also man-made disasters, especially with the presence of stress, unhealthy food, sedentary lifestyle. So you need doctors also to guide policy. Di lang pwedeng doctors lang makitaan sa clinics or sa hospitals, but you also need to see doctors to check if the policies being implemented or followed by the government to the Department of Health make sense. So challenging, but also rewarding at the same time.
On that note, thank you very much, Van, and I'm really hoping that someday we will see each other again. It will be in Bohol. I will see each other in
Hopefully. Hopefully, we see each other in Bohol. Once COVID-19 is beaten.
Correct. But definitely, if I'll have an opportunity to visit Cebu, I'm gonna, of course, send you a message and let's meet in a cafe and let's talk more.
Yes, definitely.
Bye, Van. Thank you.
Bye, Warren. Thank you.